So first of all, we want to be able to take this energy of this whirling mind and bring it into a state of concentration, absorbed in one particular activity or form, you can say, like the breath or a statue or a mantra. Okay? Now that is going to be very calming for the mind, because this very exhausting process of whirling mentally around all these different places and times, usually motivated by fear or concern, these patterns, they're very tiring. So, and teaching somebody to do that, they will find a degree of peacefulness begins to come from that activity. Yes. Things will become simpler. They will have a more simple experience, and they will feel that it's within their own hands. Their mind is not something out of control that they can do nothing about, that like the tail is wagging the dog. They can have a very empowering experience of realizing, there are levels of my mind, there are levels of my experience far deeper and more positive and more profound than I'd realized. These are wonderful things. When we have moments of moving on beyond that kind of practice, then we are more consciously wanting to dissolve selfishness, which from a yogic or a Buddhist perspective is the root of unhappiness. Clinging to a separate individual self and trying to sort of manipulate the world around you to suit that self. That's the root of unhappiness from a Buddhist perspective. Yes. So to go beyond these formal practices of looking at the breath or using prayer or something like that usually involves something called hlatong or vipassana, a notion of insight into the nature of reality. And this is where the notion of understanding the nature of reality as space with energy or awareness in it. This is the point at which cutting-edge science and Buddhist practice really go hand in hand now when we look at the nature of reality. This is an inquiry into the nature of reality which helps to free the practitioner ultimately from selfishness. And that would be the next stage on. But you can't look down into the bottom of the lake unless the water is clear. So first of all, we do these practices in everyday life, developing letting go of unpeaceful habits, and then maybe a formal practice of mental absorption. Both of these things will lead to the water becoming stiller. And then from there, then you want to look at the nature of reality, which includes the nature of the constructed self. These would be more wisdom practices. We would continue in that way. Yes, but if you can witness your mental habits and realize they're not you, yes, you're much more empowered to make choices in any situation. Whereas a lot of people, particularly people who the mental habit of anger is very strong, they're just habitually angry and they don't feel they have a choice. This is where any kind of capacity to witness your activity, your mental activity, is very useful, because then you get the feeling there is a choice. There is a choice. The mental habits aren't fully in charge. You can make a choice. And, neuroscience backs that up, as they keep telling us now. The mind is plastic. The plasticity of the mind means that if we adopt new habits of thought, then the mind reforms and changes. So really you can say that your mind is a function of your mental habits over the last 30 years. And if for the last 30 years you've thought, I hate Bob, I hate Bob, I hate Bob, I hate Bob, believe me, after 30 years you're really going to think you hate Bob. But if you think, I love Bob, I love Bob, I love Bob, I'm going to be kind to Bob, I'm going to be kind to Bob, within 30 years' time you will be being kind to Bob. My own personal experience, there's a mindfulness and there's mind training for sure. There's also renunciation, freeing your mind from greed. That's always been seen as quite important, because the notion that you need more and more and more in order to be happy comes from the assumption that you haven't got enough, and therefore you're in a state of unhappiness because you haven't got enough, right? And obviously capitalism loves us to think like that. Yeah. Great joy will come from saying, you know what, I've got enough. I've got enough. How amazing is that? Okay, I've got enough. So now what am I going to do? Yeah. So please, if you can, if your circumstances allow it, develop the mindset of contentment that you have enough. You'll find it brings so much happiness alongside the mindfulness. And out of that feeling that you have enough, and you can really celebrate that, internally celebrate it. You're so lucky, you have this, you have that, you have this. Oh my goodness, look at this. Right, so now I'm free. I'm free from wanting to just acquire more and more and more. So now what am I going to do with my life? Then the compassion will come strongly. And you need these three things. You need some mindfulness, formal training, but also renunciation and compassion. Very important.